All right, well, hello and welcome to day one of the 5-day Power BI challenge. I'm so excited to be here. So, hey, we're just going to take the first few minutes to make sure the tech is working. Welcome to everybody who's online. Thank you so much for joining. Let me see. Yeah, just say hi in the chat box. I would love to see who's on. So, yeah, unlike Facebook, I can't tell who's on until you say hi. So Shabil is here. Joey's here from UK. Awesome. I'm going to pop out the chat so I can see it a little easily. Perfect. There we go. And let me monitor. So I know once we didn't have good audio levels, so hopefully everything is working okay. Okay. Mark is here from our Learn Power BI class. So is Steve Ross and Edgy later. Shanob Kodal is here from India. Carl from Pennsylvania. Gatson is here. Okay. Okay, Shanob says we lost audio, but I think, let me see. Okay, Gellert is here. Awesome, guys. Shari Anger is here. Won't be able to stay. Yep, all right. So, guys, yeah, we're going to do this for 5 days, and I'm going to be live. If you can join me live, great. I love answering your questions. What can I say? Right, so bring all your questions. I love helping people over the roadblocks. But if you can't, then yeah, I want this to be something that works for you. And, you know, it's kind of the same way I've designed my Learn Power BI program. The whatever training program you're in, that should work for you rather than the other way around. So in my training program, everything is kind of recorded and available, and then there are opportunities to ask questions and get help. We're going to do this the same way. I'm going to point you to a ton of resources which you can use, and you can use it on your own time. You can pace yourself. I mean, the goal is to build something in the 5 days, but you can pace yourself there and join when you can. Perfect. So we have a lot more folks joining. So Ed J later from Cleveland. Joe, so some folks are struggling with audio, so I know others are not, and in my monitoring it looks okay. Try rejoining. I'm not sure. Sorry. Mario from Brazil. And Santosh, did I say hi from Bangalore, India? Gustavo is here from Medellin, Colombia. Awesome. Terrific. Sandeep says namaste. Namaste. Hola. Gosh, I wish I knew how to greet in other languages. I should learn up. But yeah, I'm so glad to have you guys here. So let's get started. So let's talk about what this challenge is about. And first of all, folks, this is an experiment. This is an experiment, as was my Learn Power BI program when I started it. So I had been doing a lot of live trainings for Power BI. So I would go across the U.S., visit a lot of countries now. I stayed within the U.S., but visited a lot of companies, some truly exciting. I remember being at NASA. That was pretty cool. The high point, though, was NBC Universal, and that was a high point, according to my daughter, because I got a picture taken with the Minions. And folks, you know, it doesn't get better than that. So, you know, my daughter liked that. Shashank is here from Chicago. Juan Korea is here from Quito, Ecuador. Terrific. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but I trust you guys, and I know you will help me make this better into an experience which is worthwhile. And that's what happened with the class. The students have shaped the class, and it is what it is because of the students and all the input I've received. In fact, when I did the beta class in February, there was no course. Right now, we have a ton of recorded videos on my YouTube channel and, of course, inside the course. But when I started off, there was no course, and we just crafted it as we went. I do have some structure for this challenge, and so let's walk through that. And thank you again for everybody who's joined. So this was me just, I think, a day or two ago. I was watching Marco Polo. Hey, don't spoil it for me. I'm still in season 1, but season 1, episode 7. They dropped us a nugget of wisdom. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. And I've thought about this earlier, about this thing about learning and doing, and how I heard from students who were joining my course, and you know, and all of them and my followers, that they have been to Power BI trainings. They have a stack of Power BI books. but somehow when you get to doing it, it's still a struggle. And for one, if you're doing it, kudos to you, my friend, right? You've already crossed that bridge, and that's great. You're in it. But of course, I'm going to see if I can come in and help you with that step. So, not just about learning, about doing Power BI, taking some action. Now, you do need some learning. You do need some grounding. You need to be grounded in the fundamentals. You need to understand all of that. But then it all kind of comes together when rubber hits the road. So that's what we're going to focus on. So I have, I'm going too fast. So this year I've been totally focused on my online training, but before that, I was running around doing a fair bit of consulting, and we would. I'm just checking the audio. Well, I would go visit companies, and we would build something in 2 or maybe 3 days, and they were long days nonetheless, but we built something which was real. It was tangible. It was a working product, not like a throwaway thing, not a prototype, not a dummy. It was connected to real data. It could be refreshed, and it had a dashboard, and it had a model you could build on. So I know it could be done in that setting, and we'll see how this 5-day challenge bears out. But I do believe it's possible. So for those of you who accepted the challenge, you got a link to the resources on the challenge accepted page. And if you're watching a replay or you're joining in later on, then we'll make sure there's a link in the details in the YouTube video so that you can join the challenge. And even if you step in on day 2 or day 3, or later, I suppose, you can still catch up, and there'll be resources. So we'll make sure there's a link down there so you can join the challenge. But you saw the resources there. First of all, of course, subscribe to the channel, Talk Power BI Facebook group, and we'll see how that works. So it took some time. I'll be candid. It took some time for our student circle group to take off. Let me show that to you real quick. So that one is the Learn Power BI, and that's for students only. And we have close to 100 members here now. So now there are 122, last I counted, students in the class, but not everybody has joined the Facebook group, which is okay. You can join when you're ready. But we have close to 100 students here. And earlier, it was me answering to a lot of questions. Now, I rarely get a chance, because before I can look at it, they're like, look at this. I joined the party late. I mean, Peter was on there and Bill was on there. So sometimes I chime in, but a lot of times there's a good interaction amongst the students. So for the Talk Power BI, we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that it becomes a similar community, kind of open, and where people can help each other. That's a Facebook group. And then, of course, you got the 5-day challenge welcome video, 0 to dashboard tutorial, how to select your first project. And there was an excellent comment on this, which I want to talk about in a second. And of course, the 5 days of YouTube schedules, the sample data set I'm going to talk about right now in this session. So again, the challenge is to build your first or next Power BI dashboard, right? So if you're starting out, then for the first dashboard, I will point you to the 0 to dashboard tutorial. That's probably all you can handle if you're just starting out. If you've already been using Power BI, then I would highly encourage you to connect your own data source. I believe that is magical. I mean, somebody can show you the fanciest of Power BI demos and you'll be like, meh. But then you see something really simple for your own business or your own data, and it's like, poof, right? It's amazing. So use that. We'll also talk about some other sample data sets. Regardless of the path you're following, first or next, you're going to go through the same exact steps. And, I follow the same exact steps no matter which client I'm working for or what I'm doing. First is you clean, shape, and transform, bring the data into your model. And then you focus on the model itself, which is, I didn't spell it out here, but it's really, you establish your relationships and write your DAX measures. Sometimes lots and lots of DAX measures. And last step is visuals. And you do this in quick step cycles. And I talk more about that in this video. And again, it's in your resources, but I'll maybe show it to you here as well. So yeah, we'll go through 3 steps. If you are on the first dashboard, then the 0 to dashboard tutorial, kind of the first, oops, didn't mean to do that. How to get out of it? There we go. So the first if you're going through the tutorial, then this step is till the 1.1.4 video. Sorry, I'm a little bit of a back rat. I love organizing things in folder, and I don't know how I ended up with that 1.1.4, but that's what it is. And the model is 145, so you're going to run from, and the last you're going to complete, which is the end of the tutorial, 153. So that's if you're going through that, and you can do it in 3 days. You can do it in 1 day. Do it in 3 days. Let's talk about that, and leave the last 2 days for some buffer, for iterating some more, doing something more. And if you're doing your own dashboard, just follow the same steps. I would expect you're familiar with it. If you're not, you can certainly go through the tutorial, but use your own data source. That's up to you. And yeah, so this one, you don't have to share. I mean, you're building off on your own desktop, so you can use your company data and build that. Of course, it might be nice to just do a screenshot. Maybe you blur it out or something like that if it's sensitive data, and share at some point in the Facebook group. We might do that as an activity. Just kind of egg everybody else on, but don't feel like it's something kind of public. I mean, I'm live here on YouTube, but your stuff doesn't have to be. So what I'm planning on my side is 5 days of live. I'm here to answer your questions. We'll see how that goes. Shout out to Dirso Alejandro from Mexico. Awesome. Glad you could join. And I'll be hanging out at the Talk Power BI group as well. So when I'm live, then I'm live. I'm with you guys. Hey. And otherwise, as much as I can, I'll hang out in the Talk Power BI group. What else do I have? Oh. So guys, I mean, you see this already in here. Day 5 is going to be epic. And it's something that I've tried with my class. And it's the first time we're going to be trying it on YouTube. But think of it as like an it's going to be an all-day marathon. It's going to be like 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 live on YouTube. It's crazy. I don't know how it'll work, but so yeah, I'll share more details about that. But day 5 is going to be kind of epic. Actually, I think I can share more. So day 5, we'll see if we can give you an opportunity to work with me one-on-one. So that's what I tried with my class, and I'm going to try it with YouTube. So day 5. I'm excited about that. I love experiments. And you know what? At this point, I love failing. I've crashed and burned so many times on YouTube Live and all that stuff. Tech always goes wrong. But that's the fun of it. So day 5, we'll see how that goes. And if you're part of this challenge, you're also going to have a chance to win a seat on my Learn Power BI program. The enrollment is opening pretty soon. There's an early bird waitlist and so forth. But if you're in this challenge, maybe you'll win a seat. So that's the exciting stuff. So let's talk about sample data sets. Okay, so now let's get serious. Let's talk about day 1. So that was all the structure. If you have any questions, let me know. Michero is here from Manlio from Mexico. Awesome. So if you are just starting out, we said if you follow the Zero to Dashboard tutorial, then the download is along with that. If you signed up for the tutorial, then you can grab the download from here. And that has AdventureWorks database. It's pretty cleaned up and so forth. So yeah, that's the good data set to start with. That's if you are just starting out. Now, if you are building your next Power BI dashboard, not your first one, and somehow either you do not want to use your company data set, or somehow that's not an option. And if you're looking for more sample data sets, so this came up in our class discussion as well, and we brainstormed some examples. So I would love it if you can share as well if you have any ideas around this. But if you're watching live, you can put in the chat window. If you were watching replay, put in the comments below. But I'll run through the options that we listed when we had these discussions in the Learn Power BI class. So the first option, actually this is the second option. I'll show you the first option in just a second, which is my top favorite choice. The first option, the second option is you work with a local business or maybe a nonprofit, and you say, I'm going to work for free. I just need your data. Let me help you. And it could be a friend who runs a small business. That's a great example, right? And see where things are, or a nonprofit. Yeah, right. So, and of course, you can agree with them. So, for sometimes for nonprofit, they're okay with if you make their data public, so you can share with others the work you've done. Sometimes they're not. So, I mean, obviously, work with them, and that one is terrific. And here is why: AdventureWorks is, it, well, so the way I typically work with my clients is not the days of those 6 month, 1 year old project or something, they're gone. Power BI is agile BI. So to me, a Power BI project is like peeling an onion. When I work with a client, 2 to 3 days, we'll build something quick and then I'll show to them and say, hey, what do you think? And then we'll go off in like 5 different ideas and we'll pick one and say, okay, let's do this. So you peel the onion step by step and it gets more awesome. And I've talked about this in another video. More awesome is usually more actionable, right? I mean, like, great, I see the numbers, but what do I do? And as you start peeling the onion, it becomes more actionable. So this one gives you an opportunity for that back and forth, for that iteration, for that cyclical approach. So again, if you have your own company data sets, then you're all set. This we're talking about if you don't have your own company data or your own data. So working with a local business nonprofit is an option. Some tools spew out or generate sample data sets. I've been working with QuickBooks recently. Would love to hear if there are any Xero users, if that generates any sample data set. I'm actually really keen on kind of starting to work with Xero. QuickBooks, I'm having a lot of fun. Initially, I was truly scared. I'm like, oh my God, QuickBooks. But I realized that I have already worked with so many concepts which are under the hood. So I may not understand QuickBooks, but I look at the data, and man, the data makes sense to me because I work with Dynamics, and that has a lot of similar elements. And finance data in general has QuickBooks looks under the hood looks the same. So QuickBooks, Salesforce, I'm told, also can generate a sample data set. Xero, I'm not sure. I would love to hear from you. Obviance is a great resource. Just search for Obviance Power BI dataset. Let me see if I have it up somewhere here. Let's just search it really quick. Obviance Power BI dataset. Great. And if you look here, so this is real data coming from a real company, and I love that. The only thing you have to be careful of are the usage guidelines. It has stricter usage guidelines than AdventureWorks and stuff. So you have to essentially attribute that. You have to say something like, oh, this comes from obviance.com. So follow those guidelines. But otherwise, there's a good set of sample. You can also get to this by, if you're in PowerBI.com, it's a get data samples. But this is a good source, and it lets you get it from in any format you want. Power BI, I think there's Excel, and so forth. So Obviance is a good one. I haven't played with it much, but that's a good one. Then, of course, there is a whole public data sets where you can go to, I don't know, UN or whatever, and everybody has a ton of data sets. But the way I like working on that is I go to the Power BI, if I can spell that right, data gallery. And the challenge with public data sets, I've done that in a while, in like airport delay, airline delays, and that sort of stuff. And you get a dump of data, and then you have a lot of questions, and there's nobody to ask questions to. And that's why I talked about this option where you can go back and forth. Or, of course, if you're working with your own company data, either you're the expert already, or you have a resident expert whom you can go back and forth and say, hey, what does this column mean? Is this relevant? What about this? Is this important? So the challenge with public data sets is that you can't really ask those questions, but I like taking a peek at the data stories gallery because a lot of them use public data sets, and they have already done some of the parsing of the data set. So you can say, okay, I see this field is important and that field is important. So a lot of times, do they make oh boy. So I think some of them make the Power BI desktop file available. Maybe not. If they don't, then it's not as valuable. But yeah, take a look at that. That may give you some ideas. And of course, go beyond that. Just search for public data sets. And other sample data sets. There's AdventureWorks, Contoso, whatever, all of those fictitious companies. Wide World Importers. That's a new one, I think. So you can go for that. But again, if you can use your company data sets, that's best. Now, there's one other option if you can't use a company data set, which is my favorite, which is kind of like the number 2 option, but you get paid for it. If you can pull that off, my friend, that's a lot more valuable, not just for you, but for your customer as well. And I kind of see that in my Learn Power BI program as well. The transformation, the speed that I see of learning, of adoption of my paid students in my program, it is way higher than anything that I see with kind of the general followers. And that's the thing, right? Sometimes the transformation is in that transaction, and by paying you, they're committing to this work and they're ready to work with you. If it's free, then they devalue it and they don't take it seriously. So if you can pull that off, that's great. Okay, let's see. Peter is using Xero and thinking of using the project this week. Perfect. If you have any kind of sample data sets, or if Xero does that, that would be awesome. So wind data from Wind Guru to predict the best beach to surf from. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. Steve Ross, Kaggle.com has many data sets. Does require that you register. Okay, that's fair enough. So yeah, good resources. So I'm going to do a little bit of teaching, but most of my teaching is already on the YouTube channel in the Xero to Dashboard tutorial or in a deeper form inside my Learn Power BI course. I don't want to replicate that. I just don't want to redo it. Instead, I'm just going to show you a little bit, and then I would love to take your questions, and we'll see how this goes. If some of you have kind of more intricate questions, I mean, feel free to ask your questions in the chat board and queue them up. If there are intricate questions, I might have some of you kind of call me, and that way we can talk. Sometimes that saves so much time in the typing. So I'm just going to show you a little bit, but the idea is not to kind of teach you the query editor. So again, the Xero to Dashboard tutorial is there, and that teaches you kind of the basics. And if I know some of my students, I sent the invite for the challenge to my students as well. So if you are on here, you obviously have a ton of resources inside my course. Actually, let me just quickly show you the course. So the course, when you sign up, you get 3 elements. You have the core course, and this focuses on the fundamentals. And I hope I never stray from that. My whole philosophy is less is more. Not to cram 1001 tips and tricks into something. That's not the way to learn. I believe certainly for Power BI, you got to focus on the core fundamentals. So this is what the core module talks about. And, it doesn't change as much. I've made some tweaks here and there, and I do want to make more. But otherwise, it just focuses on the core fundamentals. You can see here, it goes through these modules. Xero Dashboard, which is the same as the YouTube one, but then it goes deeper into query engine, relationships, DAX, visuals, and then talks about the PowerBI.com platform. So that's core. And then this advanced library, this has been built with the help of my students. A lot of times, the questions they asked, the feedback that they had, I've been building this library, and I imagine this is going to be an ever-growing. Now, I don't want this to become totally sprawling and like a sprawling metropolis, but I intend to keep adding to it, and you can see what we have right now. Data modeling, so data modeling is a topic that I really enjoy, and I focus on this kind of woven into the main course already. But then I got enough questions from students that it felt like it needed a module on its own. So we talk about it kind of separately. So that has a lot of videos. Ultimate calendar table. Now, some of these videos are on YouTube, but what I typically do is that I think the first 3 videos are on YouTube, but the rest are inside the class. And calendar table is kind of weird. When I started, I didn't know how many videos I'm going to end up with. I already have 7. I already have 8. Wow. And I have ideas for like 4 more. So calendar is clearly a topic which has a lot to cover. Financial reports and statements, that's the one that I'm working on right now. I have some modules, but I'm going to be expanding more. It really, I think, is going to be my focus for the next few months. We'll see how that goes. And some DAX and real world and query editor. So that's kind of the bonus module. Did that work? Okay, good. And the last one is, of course, we meet every week, and it's kind of like I don't know if you're familiar with GoToMeeting. It's a live call. It's pretty interactive, and students can talk. They can share their screen, all the sort of stuff. So that's we hang out there. Okay, so let's come back here. So so there's my tutorial. there. You should have a link to that in the challenge accepted page. But let's see. I did want to teach you something fun, actually. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, Miss Sherry had a comment that yeah, if you can charge for the work and they care about what you're doing. Exactly. So yeah, folks, if you can charge money, you'll realize that the whole dynamic changes. I mean, frankly, if you're doing this, then it's as if they're doing a favor to you. It feels weird, even if you're working, creating something valuable for them, but the dynamic changes here. So that's pretty powerful. Okay, so I'm gonna teach you a little bit because I can't help myself. And what I wanted to do was, so in the tutorial, you already have the budget scenario. I'm not gonna do that again. And where is it? Oh boy, what happened to this one? Hold on, let me put the file back in place. I think it's this guy. Oh, or budget. Okay, I don't have the right file, but yeah, in the Zero to Dashboard tutorial, we parse a simple file, simple in the query editor world, but would have been pretty complicated in the old world. Let's see how things are going. Perfect. Where did that go? And again, this is in the Zero to Dashboard tutorial, so I'm not going to cover that again. But I'm going to cover another scenario that came up, which was, what if my file has, I need to stop pulling in data after a certain line. So let's say that I get some data and then I need to stop at the grand total row. I don't want to go beyond that, but the challenge is the grand total row isn't always in the same spot, and it can be on row 25, it can be on row 60 the next day, who knows, right? We have no idea. It can float around, and the number of rows at the bottom can also change. So we can't say something like remove the bottom 6 rows. So how do we do that? So let's take a shot at that, and we'll see how it works. And again, the idea here is to do that cycle. Where did that go? For the query editor step, we're doing clean shape transform and bringing it into our model. I should also actually point out that for modeling, there's a good video. Well, it's by me, but it's a good one, which is in my. Let's just go to my channel. So if you look at my playlist, the last one, data modeling, that's a good one. So if you're starting out there, that's a great one to watch. Okay, so let's so here, this is our scenario, and we want to remove all the rows after grand total. So I have 2 solutions for this. One was the first one that I thought of, which actually isn't that great. And the other one was, I can't remember, it was Samuel or somebody in my class, Learn Power BI class, and they said, oh, this is the way to do it, and that was much easier. So I'm thinking, should I show you the easy way or my kind of weird way first? Let me show you the easy way first. So we have Power BI, and the goal with the query editor is, so I was recently working with a client, great student, she's making a lot of progress, and she's doing pretty amazing, but the scenario she was struggling with was she would export a set of files from a BI system. How many of you are familiar with that? A BI system, which is simply a data source to export to Excel. But then she was manually removing kind of the headers and footers, and then she was combining all the files together in Access somehow. But then the challenge was that the recent data she needed to update. So let's say the data for November, she's updating it every day or every week. Then she would go in, delete the November data, bring it back again. Pretty painful. And we set it to the point where it was one-click refresh. And so that's the goal you want to get to. No matter how complicated the steps are, you should be able to get to that. And often I say that, if a human can do it, and you can break down those steps, then you can teach the query editor to do it. A lot of times we don't realize that we do a lot of steps kind of intuitively, kind of quickly, and if you just have to break it down when you want to teach the query editor to do it. So let's go to the query editor, point to our Excel file, and do footer rows. Okay, great. Oh, yeah, gosh, sorry. So let's move my. Thank you, Carl. Hopefully, I'm small enough now. Okay, I'm off to the side. Let's say. Okay. Okay, Shahib has a question. I'll get to that. Shout out to Scott Clayton from Binghamton, New York. Yeah, so SAP, it's odd that you bring it up. So some of my students have been asking around in the group about that. So we'll go, let's go in, what, budget. So I'm just going to step you through the small example. So here we are, and let's remove the top rows, first of all. Oops. Remove top rows. So just going to click that. And where did it pop up? There we go. So we'll say 1, 2, 3. Oops. First row is headers. So pretty plain vanilla. I mean, this is, but then we have to find out where the grand total occurs and then remove everything below that, right? So everything following that. And it can be on 21, it can be on 51. We don't really know. So for this, I'm going to, you know what, let me, gosh. So I'm going to show what my student taught me. And I mean, I get the steps, but that's frankly the fun part. There are always a few ways to do things. Maybe you guys will come up with something different. Raj is here from Brisbane. Good morning to you. I know it's morning over there. So let's do custom column. And we're just going to say, I don't know, detect grand total. So let's say detect grand total. And what is the column name? Category. So we'll say category equals grand total. How about that? Ooh, actually, I don't want that. So we'll say something different. If category equals grand total, then grand total, else no. Okay. So we have that, but now this only marks a single row, but we have what's called a fill down, which we can use to fill down everything below that and remove that. So we detected the grand total. We know grand total, you're found at this row. And then I'm going to select this column. And let me see if I can find fill down. Probably in transform. Yep, there we go. So there's fill, and it has different options. You can fill down or up. I guess I could do either, and it would still work depending on what I would exclude. Let's do down for now, because that's what I had in mind. And now you can see, and I love this part. It's kind of like time travel, that I can go back and forth and see what changed. So I can go back in the previous step. So this is where we were. Added custom, come on. Oh, I gotta scroll down. Grand total, and then once we do fill down, you can see, boom, it filled everything down. And now we can simply come in here and say remove grand total. But when I do that and there are only a few options, sometimes it gets it wrong. Sometimes it says, oh, make sure this is null, instead of saying not grand total. And for that, I always look at the formula bar, and I always recommend you turn on the formula bar, even if you never mess with it. So filtered rows, and notice what it did here. So it didn't quite get it. There were two options, null or grand total, and what it's saying is detect grand total is null. That's not what I wanted. I mean, maybe it's going to have the same result, so I can leave it. But sometimes you want to say, no, it's you want to change it and say, that's not what I meant. I meant this. So let's leave it there. So we have our final rows, and that's it. I'm going to leave it there. Of course, there's some other cleanup here, but this is pretty typical to what we have covered in our Zero to Dashboard tutorial, where you remove the subtotals. Maybe we can quickly do it. So remove text filters, does not contain. Remember, it's case sensitive. I mean, of course, you can kind of override that by using functions with uppercase or lowercase. But we remove that, category, subcategory, product key. And at this point, we can say unpivot other columns. And now we're kind of set. So, but really the key step here was how do we remove rows after grand total? Now there's another approach that I had in mind, which was actually a little more complicated. But you know what? Let's pause and let's see if we can hit some of your questions. Let's see how that goes. So we're in day one. I'm excited for you guys. And as I said, this is a bit of an experiment, but so I need your help. We'll see how that goes. Let's take Shabiz's question. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. Oops. Perfect. What is the row capacity for data set when retrieved in the report? The question is ahead of lecture. Okay, great. So what if I said unlimited? I mean, that is one answer, and that's true. That's true. But it depends, and that's a lawyerly answer. So row capacity for data set. So you know, we talk about big data, and it's funny how the concept of big data or the definition of big data changes for you as you step into Power BI. So in the Excel world, anything over 1 million was, or whatever that specific number is, was big data because it couldn't fit in Excel, and you're like, shoot, what do I do, right? So now you can go beyond million. So you can go 1 million plus. And in fact, usually when we have tens of millions, I don't think about it. I seriously don't think about it. I mean, 10 million is the same as 100 or 10 rows. You know, 10 million shouldn't be a big deal. Now, when you go to 100 million plus, you got to start being a little careful about the shape of your data. And I'll talk about that in a second. And if you're going, I don't know, like 500 million plus or you know, then you got to be really careful about the shape. And what the heck do I mean about that? So for that, I would refer you guys to this video on my channel. So if you just go to my channel, youtube.com/PowerBIPro, in the playlist, there's this one about data modeling. And in the video, I talk about how data modeling, the knowledge, which I never read a book, but I was taught by my mentor, Greg Weber, that has been my differentiator. That, I believe, has put me kind of head and shoulders above a lot of other folks. So it's cool, and actually I have the PowerPoint for that. So let's go to data modeling. Perfect. So data modeling is about, the way I see it, is you have your data table and you have your lookup tables, who, what, where, when, how. So if you're not doing things like this, God forbid if you have a flattened table with everything inside it, that's horrible for more than just performance reasons. It has other things that it's going to leave you challenged, and you're going to be breaking your head against the wall. So yeah, you want this structure. Power BI is a cube technology. It works best when you set it up this way. So yeah, you have to shape things correctly. You have to have the data table, which is number heavy, all the attributes on your lookup table. So that's kind of the 100 to 500 million range. Now, I worked with a company which had a terabyte for data. So I don't know how many rows, but probably billions of rows, a terabyte of data. And they gotten in Power BI, and a Power BI is great at compression. You would hear things about columnar compression. So usually, let's look at a data table. In relational databases, although technology is changing now, but typically it was stored row by row. So they would store this row because these were, I don't know if you care about acronyms, but these were called OLTP, online transaction processing. And the scenario was, imagine if I go to a video store and they ask my name and pull up my record, then they would find all the information about Avi Singh. So, it was all stored together. But Power BI stores it column-wise, and you can see right away that there's amazing opportunity for compression because there's often a lot of repetition. So it's great at compression. That and use a ton of other tricks. So the 1 terabyte of data was compressed to 250 gigabytes. But do you think that was in an Excel and Power Pivot file? No, it wasn't. Was it in a PBIX file? No, it wasn't. I mean, 250 gigabytes Power BI desktop file? No, thank you. I would rather, have my nails pulled out or something. So it doesn't work. And that's where I love Power BI, because there is a continuum. It's by Microsoft. They play in the big league, and they've given you this easy way to kind of step up as you grow, as your organization grows. And I'll tell you what the best part is. So your journey can be that you start off in either Excel or Power BI desktop, doesn't matter, and then you move to SQL Server Analysis Services, or now, of course, there are a few other variants of that. There's Azure Analysis Services that lives in the cloud, kind of like SSAS, but and the best part is that the concepts are the same. So if you go through, we were talking about, did I close my course? Anyway. If you go through kind of that set of concepts, well, the query, it's the same DAX measures, the same model, same relationship, all of that applies, so you can easily go from one world to the other. So that's not a challenge. So SSAS Tabular, as far as I know, it doesn't have a published data limit. It depends on your resources. So if you can build a beefy enough server, then it will support it. Now, having said that, I have anecdotally, some of the teams that I work with, some of my colleagues that I've talked to, if it gets really, really large, then SSAS Tabular hasn't worked for them. So we're talking obviously bigger than 250 gigabytes compressed, maybe terabyte even after compression. Then, of course, at that point, you might explore other technologies. So SSAS has the traditional one, SSAS multidimensional, that is an option, and maybe some other big data options. So that's kind of the spectrum. So hopefully that helped. Perfect. So Scott, if you students in my Scott is talking about he's looking to bring SAP data into Power BI, and some of my students were talking about that as well. If somebody has used SAP, so I would be curious to hear how you're looking to connect to it. I think if you go to get data, there are some SAP options in here, but do those work? Do they have challenges? How does that? Is it kind of easy enough just to go here, connect to SAP, or is it more involved? Shout out to Oning from San Jose, California. I think I said hi to Raj from Brisbane. Good morning. Perfect. Where? Good question. So. I'll call you Alejandro. Alejandro is asking, where will we be asking questions for you? Facebook, YouTube, or email? I will say that when I'm live, just ask on YouTube. When I'm not live, then Facebook is a good resource. So that's the dynamic we have seen in our Facebook channel, at least the one for the class, that it doesn't have to be me. Oftentimes, there are other folks who can answer the question. So we'll see on Talk Power BI. I'll drop in as well. But by asking here, you give others an opportunity to kind of help you as well and give you an option there. So when I'm live, ask on YouTube. Otherwise, Talk Power BI, let's see that. And hey, I'll freely admit this is an experiment. We'll see how it goes and tweak it, change it, we'll do what it takes. And of course, we have gone through the same thing with the class. We had a different discussion forum, and it was kind of a bit of a mess. So we have ended up with Facebook, and we love it. Not saying it's perfect, but yeah, it's worked great. It's a good question. Let's see. What else is there? So Peter is asking about, do we have to think about efficiency? That is add the column equals grand total. Let's talk about that. String. Yeah, so Peter was talking about in this, could we have done true or false? I think if you do true or false, then the fill down or fill up doesn't work. It only catches the null. So notice that here, if instead of saying if, oh gosh, if I want my old dialog box. How do I get that? Let's go to advanced editor. So in this step, where we said if category equals grand total, then grand total, else null. If you don't do that, then the fill down approach doesn't work. Now, of course, you can probably take a different approach, but imagine here, if we just say each category equals grand total and remove this one. Each category equals, does that work? Okay, good. So now we have false and true, which is good, but you can use a fill down approach because fill down works with nulls. So if you do fill down, it does nothing. It's the same result because it doesn't find nulls, kind of going up or down. So, but yeah, possibly you could take a different approach from here. Port details. Okay, so Shabi is saying he connected to SAP HANA through server port details. Actually, I missed one. So Peter was asking about efficiency, and I'm not exactly sure what he was asking about, but I'll give my answer nonetheless. Hey, since I have the mic, right? No, just kidding. So so and folks, as I said, if some of you have like an intricate question or something, then we'll see if you can kind of call in and we can talk. So people think about efficiency different ways, and I've been using Power BI for so long that I think of efficiency differently, maybe than somebody who's starting out would do. So in here, you obviously notice, did I remove grand total? So grand total, I don't want the grand total in there. I don't know if of course, I messed up the whole thing by trying to show you guys how it works, but add custom. So let's bring it back to that one. So if category equals grand total, actually don't need that, then give me grand total, else null. Got that? And I'll fix everything. So here, I did remove the grand total. The grand total is gone, and there were some subtotals here, if you notice it here, and I removed those as well. So that's what's efficient in my mind, and there's no redundancy. I can calculate the grand total later on in a measure, and I can calculate subtotals as well. So that in my mind is efficiency. But sometimes people come in and they say, I need subtotals here so that I don't have to recalculate it later on, and that in their mind is more efficient, but I think it doesn't work that way. So one warning that I provide to my students and followers is that sometimes I see people, they build something in the query editor and they are trying to build a report. That's not the idea. You can go that way, but that's almost leads you back to the same data hell that you're coming from, where you have lots and lots of different reports and files. And my data modeling talk talks about that. So let's see. I actually had an example here. So sometimes I see and they are building a report in the query editor, and that is tempting for a few reasons. So if you're new to Power BI and if you're looking at query editor and you're looking at kind of the measures and the DAX, query editor feels a lot more Excel-like. So people like gravitate towards that and they want to do everything in there, which is a mistake, my friend. I mean, it might improve your life a little bit, but it's not going to be transformative, right? That you're doing something which is evolutionary, but what Power BI allows you to do is something revolutionary, right? Just mind-blowingly awesome, and you're not going to get there by doing this. So that's why I'm in Power BI. You have to learn a little bit of fundamentals, a little bit of modeling, and that's what I've tried to kind of include in my course. Make sure you have the concept. Otherwise, yeah, this is a dead sign, that dead giveaway that things are not going right. If you find yourself that just the way you used to have these lots and lots of Excel sheets, like, oh, this one is that report, this one is for Debbie, and all of that, and if you find yourself ending up with similar thing, but in Power BI Desktop, PBIX file, a mountain of them, you took a wrong turn somewhere, my friend. So efficient in Power BI is where you remove redundancy, and you have the where was that? This structure of data table and the lookup table, the who, what, where, when, how. Good one. Let's see. Okay, that looks interesting. Shashank is asking about if there's a change in a column name in an already loaded table and newly added values under those column and source file, is there any way that I can refresh it without any error? There's a change in column name. Huh. Yeah, that's a good one. Loaded table. So let's see if we can kind of recreate this scenario. So we have I'm thinking what's the best way to do it. So we did this one. Let's go back, and what happened to a query? Let's try something else. Let's try and we'll say country sales, USA, Canada, Mexico, and sales 10, 20, 30. Oopsie. Test. Alright, so let's go to Power BI and let's connect to Excel, and we're going to connect to test and see what that gives us. And I'm going to say sheet, hit OK. Okay, perfect. And this is sales. Good enough. And let's do close and apply. And now if we go here and if we say region, and this has I'm not sure, maybe Europe, and that has 50. So now the column name changed. From country we went to region, and let's see how our Power BI file behaves right now. So it gives an error, and if we go in the edit query, so the error in this case is informative enough. Sometimes it's a little tricky, but usually I go in here. So if sometimes you can't figure out what's going on from the error message, that happens, I usually go in here and say refresh all preview, and then I focus on anything that has this warning icon, and sometimes it's a few. So I go to sales, and often you can go to, sometimes there's a go to error step, but in this case it's right here. So notice that I had the change type step, and if you haven't done this already, again, this is the first thing I tell people to do, is that go to the view bar and turn on the formula bar. And then I wish it was turned on by default, and even if it totally scares you, which it shouldn't, it's going to be okay. I mean, I remember when I first saw the advanced data, I'm like, what is that? Oh my God. But it's okay, you're going to get there, and it really helps to see the formula bar because you can kind of see a little bit more on what's going on. So here you can see that the change type, it changed, it's looking for country. And I'll say this, my friend, I hate this step. It's automatically added, and almost always I delete it. Right? I delete it because it gives you this kind of problem. So let's say delete change type. That's what I would recommend. Delete the change type, and now it works. Now is, notice that already I have USA, Canada, Mexico, Europe, and it's working. So you might have to still fix some things in your model. I mean, if you had graphs which were showing sales by country, those might need to be fixed, but at least the data loads. And I'll come back and talk about change types, how I use it. So the automatic step that's added, and by the way, there is a way to do it in here as well, which is, there's so much good, detect data type. So notice here, I can say detect data type, and let's see if it produces the same result that we had. And, well, it's not quite the same. Earlier, it was referring to both country and sales, and now we only got region text. And that's what I'm saying, that by turning the formula bar, you can read it. I mean, and you can ignore the stuff. You know what the step is about. The step is about change data type. And, if not for the first time, the third time you see it, you'll see, yeah, this makes sense. So I can see that it's saying region type is text. So that one I don't care about. I usually only focus on numbers, currency, or dates. So if there is a date somewhere, like if you go back to our budget table, and is there a change type here? Yeah, like this step. I mean, this is BS. I mean, I don't want this step in here. Notice this is a change type, and notice how long this is. And that's what makes it very susceptible to breakage. If something changed in the data set, category name was changed and so forth, it's going to blow up on me. And usually I don't need this. I don't need all of this to be there. So usually I would just delete it. Change text, you're gone. Change type. And similarly here, notice that, it just does it automatically. And like, who cares about this? So I delete all of those, all of the automatic ones, which refer to every single column. That's BS. And then usually when I get my end result, then I focus on the dates and the numbers. So let's try that. So in here, I would say value. This is, let's make it currency. So this is fixed decimal. So this is budget currency. Month, I'll make it a date, and there's a whole discussion there about how to handle this. And product key, let's see what's going on. Error grand. Oh, I forgot to remove grand total. Did I? Oh, well. Okay, I'll just remove errors. How about that? Remove errors. Many ways to do it, but so I changed the data type. I wanted to focus on the change type. And then product key, it depends. It depends. So key, you can have it numeric, or you can make it a number. I think number would be more efficient, slightly more efficient. Number would be efficient, but of course the more important thing is that it needs to be the same data type across your data and lookup tables. So notice the change, right? So now I am in control, and I know which column names I'm changing. So I only care about something that's number or currency or something or date. Everything else, I don't care. Let it be loaded as text. So this way, you're going to have a more robust model, which is not going to break every time a column name changes. Now, that doesn't mean you wouldn't have things to fix in your model. Again, if you had a chart which was showing country, sales by country, and country name changed. So hopefully that helps. And to kind of summarize that, I will say remove the automatic change type step. Control it yourself, and obviously, as I said, turn on the formula bar. That tells you so much, and that's the way I stepped into M. I became more and more familiar with M just by looking at the formula bar, and one day I was brave enough to click the advanced editor and muck around in there. And it's okay. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in M, but I can get around. It's a good question there. Let's see. So Shanob is asking about Salesforce. So I'll give you Yeah, that's a good question. And I feel like I want to reach out to my students because I know there's one student. Who is it? I forget. But they've done Salesforce. And so here's what I heard from them. And they said, Avi, the course, the Learn Power BI course and Power BI in general has saved us a ton of money because we would have had to pay Salesforce like an extra fee to do advanced reporting or something like that. And that would have been for whatever, if we had 50 users or 100 users, you pay extra for each one of them. And now we can use Power BI to pull data from there and just build the reports and share them internally. Now, of course, so yeah, the $10, there might be, if you're sharing using PowerBI.com, there'll still be a cost of $10. So, yeah, I don't know. I know that my student was able to solve it. I'm not sure if it is you have to pay to a different level to be able to export, or how do they do it? That's a good question. I'll if I find out, if somebody else finds out, I'll post it in the Talk Power BI group, or you can go ahead and post it in there, and I'll try to find an answer to it. And maybe somebody else would beat me to the punch. It happens all the time. But yeah, so I'll circle back with you inside the Talk Power BI group. So Shabi is talking about SAP, I think. Yes. So connection was seamless, but after a million rows, closed after loading the data. Okay, so yeah, that's challenging. So Shanob is talking about Salesforce has a limit 2,000 rows. Shabi, I believe, is talking about SAP, but he's saying after a million rows, it kind of closed and didn't load the data. So there might be some limitations. And so, of course, the way I have gone around, and I haven't gotten a chance to work with Salesforce or SAP, but there's a good example I think we can use. So QuickBooks, and frankly, this is it's all the same problem. And the problem is that you use a tool. Let's say you use QuickBooks or Salesforce or Dynamics or SAP. And you know what? It's a good tool for what it does. You like it. You don't want to kick it out, right? I mean, yeah, you're like, yep, QuickBooks works for us. Salesforce works for us. Great. And it lets you do what it's good at. In QuickBooks, it's just all the accounting and all that stuff. And yeah, sure, it's great. But there are two scenarios that happen. One, it doesn't have great reporting. It's good at keeping track of accounting and all that stuff. So QuickBooks or whatever Dynamics does, the CRM management and so forth, and SAP, ERP, and all that stuff. So it's good at what it does, but it doesn't have great reports. So you want to do your own reports, but your data is trapped inside that tool. And another scenario, the second scenario is, let's imagine that the tool had perfect reports, immaculate reports, the best you could ever wish for. Now, I know that never happens, but still, let's pretend. Even then, you're going to hit a wall when the first time you're like, you know what? I want to combine my QuickBooks data with my competitor or industry data, which I'm getting from this webpage. How do you do it in QuickBooks? You can't. You can't, right? So there are always going to be scenarios where you want to extract that data from that tool just so you can build your own reports. You can combine it with whatever you want. So that's a scenario. So either you do it through API, or there are connectors built into the Power BI, right? Power BI connects to a lot of data sources. But other way, of course, is to go straight to the backend. And I've done that with Microsoft Dynamics. Microsoft Dynamics uses SQL Server as a backend, so we connect it straight to the SQL. Now, it has some trade-offs. And trade-offs is a pretty common theme with Power BI. And you know what? I love it. I love trade-offs because trade-offs means I have options. Nobody's telling me, Avi, thou shalt do things this way. They're giving me an option saying, oh, okay, I can do it this way, I can do it that way, and this has this advantages, that has that advantages, and I love that. So if you go directly to the back end, the disadvantage is that a lot of time it looks like like something threw up, right? I mean, especially if you're not familiar with the data structure, the first time you step in, you look at Dynamics data, it looks nothing like the front end. It's like, oh man, this table. So there's some figuring out, but that's what we did. So Dynamics, we did that. So let's say, I don't know what to call it. So I'll generalize it to I don't know, third-party tools. So this could be QuickBooks, this could be Dynamics, this could be SAP, this could be Salesforce. So of course we could use kind of the API or connectors, but they can have its challenges. Backend database, if you can get to that, and for Dynamics we were able to, or in case of QuickBooks, use I'm going to third party, but tools. I don't know. Anyway, you get the idea. But I was going to use the third party word here again. So QuickBooks has other third party tools. There is QODBC by QuickBooks themselves. Maybe they acquired it, or QODBC, and there's QCube. Those are the two that I know of. And there's also a third one, which I forget. But you can have these tools which extract the data from it. So I think those are the kind of options that I have. So if you're having trouble with this, see if you can find workarounds, if you can make that work, if you can get around that 2,000 row limit. If not, maybe try a different approach. And again, I'm not saying it would work with Salesforce, but in general, that's the way I look at it. Okay, perfect. So we're on page 2. How cool is that? I'm not going to make it small. Let's see what are the questions you have. Let me do another fun, quick scenario. Should I do questions? I'm not sure. Okay, there are only a few more, so let's take that on. Which page am I on? Oh, whoa, yeah. I think I have, so Ramesh had a question about connecting to GitHub. I believe that can be done. Yeah, I wouldn't know the specific answer to that. Sorry. So maybe, again, post that in the Talk Power BI Facebook group. After this live session, I'll see if I can find out an answer to some of that. Woo! Oh boy. So I do this in Talk Power BI where some questions get the power on seal. So you've heard my tagline is power on, and the lightning one is the one I've adopted. So this one gets the lightning symbol. So Carl is asking about, because that's a great question. That's a great question. So you get the lightning if it's a deeper question than it looks like. So I love Excel. Is there any downside to doing my models in Excel and then placing to Power BI? But it points to the bigger question of Excel and Power BI and how they kind of work together. And I'll be candid with you guys. I feel like it's a little bit confusing. Maybe that's an understatement. Maybe it's a lot confusing. It's just crazy sometimes to talk about this. Of course, all the naming changes hasn't helped. I mean, it used to be Power Pivot and Power Query, but if you look in Excel now, you don't even see those terms pretty much. I mean, if you go to the data tab, it just says data model, and it just has this get data. So the terms Power Query and Power Pivot are kind of disappearing as well in 2016. Yes, it's kind of hard to talk about and hard to sometimes figure out how they fit together. I did take a shot at it in the PPEP video. So if you go to Zero to Dashboard tutorial, this one tries to straighten that all out, that what all those terms mean. So a side note, that was supposed to be a play on the PPAP video, pen, pineapple, apple pen, but never quite. I don't think anybody got it. But yeah, so this talks about how they fit together. And my message in the end is that it doesn't matter. Just pick one. Where is it? Yeah, pick one, right? So that's what I say. It doesn't matter much. Pick one. And as an Excel user, that's where I started. I mean, of course, Power BI Desktop wasn't even around, but I'll admit, even when they introduced Power BI Desktop, I was kind of sitting on the fence for a while before I jumped in. I will admit that now, almost exclusively, I build things in Power BI Desktop. But starting out, I say it doesn't matter much. You pick one. Yeah, so it's about Excel and Power BI. I always say, so Microsoft Teams says that Excel and Power BI, they're better together. I say they rock together, so it's pretty amazing. So yeah, it's not about this versus that or anything like that. It's you can use both. But let's see if you can answer this specific question. Placing Power BI. So there are a few ways you can do it. Let's say you build your models in Excel. You build your models in Excel, and then you publish them. And I talk about that topic at great length. It's one of my favorite ones, and I talk about it in here in this video as well, and a few places in the Zero to Dashboard tutorial about the concept of author, publish, and consume. And folks, I sometimes have tried to like force it down people's throats, if you will, but I've realized that you got to be ready for it. There are a lot of folks who are not ready for it. They don't get this concept, but it was life changing for me. And the biggest takeaway is that you get one source of truth, and that powers all of your reporting. And that is immensely powerful, immensely powerful. So if you're in that paradigm, then it matters very little whether you use Excel or Power BI Desktop. You can use either, but then you publish the model, and then you can connect, as you saw in that visual, you can connect multiple kind of reports or visualization tools to your published model. You can use Power BI, you can use Excel, you can use SSRS, doesn't matter. At that point, I'm agnostic visualization tool. I don't care if you use Tableau, ClickView, whatever. Right? So you publish that, and then you connect reports to it. But your model sits in one spot. Now, there are a few places you can do publish. You can publish to PowerBI.com, either in an Excel model or PowerBI.com model. You can publish to SSAS Tabular, Azure Analysis Services. So there are a few options there. So in the publish model, certainly it doesn't matter. You can create it in Excel, publish it to, let's say, PowerBI.com, and then at that point, you can go, do I have Power BI open? You can go analyze in Excel to build your Excel reports, and you can do, of course, you can create, just click on it and create new Power BI reports. In fact, you can even use Power BI Desktop to connect to a report that's published in the cloud. Let me just show that to you really quick. All right, so Ramesh, I see your challenge. I'm going to check with the Microsoft team and see if they have any ideas on that GitHub private repo. Okay, so Power BI Desktop, you can come in here and you can say get data, and you can say Power BI service. Of course, you can do the same thing for analysis services. So if you publish your data model there, so I'm going to say get data Power BI service. It may ask me to log in. Let's see if I'm already logged in. Come on, buddy. Did it pop up a login screen somewhere? Oh, there it is. Weird. So you notice that it's connected to my PowerBI.com, and I have my different workspaces, and I can say, you know, go here and connect to AdventureWorks and load. This button shouldn't be load because it's not loading anything. This file is going to be really, really small because it's connected to that thing in the cloud, but it lets you, let's do cost. It lets you build a report, but again, it's not housing any data. In fact, if you notice, off to the side, you notice how there are typically the three tabs. There's report, there's data, and there's relationships. It doesn't even have those tabs because it doesn't have the data, right? It's connecting to the cloud. So that's the author publish model. And here, nobody even knows whether you used Excel or Power BI Desktop. So it definitely doesn't matter. Let's say you're not doing that. And let's say you're not publishing anywhere. And then what you do is you build it in Excel, and I'm not sure if you're doing it, but let's open a new one. Power BI Desktop. So in Power BI Desktop, you can import from an Excel file. So you could do that. So if you go here and you can go File, Import, and you can say Excel Workbook Contents. And it's really looking for something which has been built using Excel Power Pivot, and it pulls it in. So it pulls in the Power Pivot elements, the data model and so forth, pulls in Power Query, and it gives you a Power BI file. So if you're using that, I see that one as a one-way journey. So if you go to Power BI Desktop, kind of with the import, because once you import it and then you make any changes to Power BI, you can't import it again to apply new changes. It doesn't work that way. It's going to wipe everything away. So any changes you do. So that's like a one-way journey here. So you can do that, but only once, right? So that's kind of a one-way street. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna stop there. Maybe there are a few other scenarios. Uh, yeah, and I'll throw one other out there. So often when I was building in Excel, if I was building a model here, I like to be able to quickly do connect to in a pivot table. Man, I've lived my life in Excel, right? So sometimes Power BI feels a little claustrophobic. It's like, damn, I just want a pivot table, and you're trying to debug a nasty DAX measure, and like, come on, make it work. So for that, when I'm developing using Power BI Desktop, let me see if I can show this. Let's see if this works. So I can go and connect Excel to my Power BI Desktop model. Let's see a way. It's not going to work right now because I have multiple models, but there are a few ways to do it. So that way, I don't have to give up on Excel. I can have Excel to kind of debug my Power BI model. Okay, did I have something else for the query editor? I believe that's possible. So Alejandro is asking about, is there an easy way to connect to Excel online from Power BI Desktop? I think you have to get the URL of the, gosh, I've solved this, or maybe one of my students solved it, but it was you had to get the URL off the file and do it that way. Let's see. So it depends. I mean, I know if you're using kind of OneDrive for Business, or SharePoint Online, all of those you could do it. Okay, I'll table this one. Gosh. Okay, so Joe is asking, one of my clients drops a monthly spreadsheet into SharePoint. How would I connect to this Excel sheet? Oh boy, so that one is a challenging problem. So I didn't really answer this one. I know it's possible. It's using, so whatever Joe is using to connect to the spreadsheet on SharePoint, that's going to work for you, Alejandro. So Joe, if you can kind of type in, and so my understanding is that you get kind of the URL, and this file isn't saved. Darn it. Let me see if I can do a file. Let's dwell on that really quickly. So let's say if I go, I'm just trying to find an Excel file or create one. Okay. So if we go this guy, come on. And if I go file, oops, copy path. Let's see what this gives us. Oh, darn it. Yeah, so sorry, it's giving me a local path, but you get essentially kind of the online path, and then you're able to do it. So I'll pause on that one. So I'll just say should be able to connect using online path, and later on we'll see if we can actually try to do it. But Joe's question is challenging, and it really doesn't matter where the file is coming from, but the file is essentially getting overwritten, and we want to connect to it. but we want to append the data. I'm losing my tongue. Hold on. Let me get some water. Ignore this one. Where do I have a simple example of this? So let's say we have kind of sales, but every time a new file is dropped, and it's connecting to test.xlsx, but every time a new file is dropped, you want to append it in our data set. Now, I used to say that this is impossible in Power BI, but I've learned my lesson, never say impossible. So I used to say that you need to solve this outside of Power BI. Now, of course, the simplest way would be that you go back to whoever is the client dropping the file and ask them to kind of create a new file, or you do it yourself where you, every time they drop the file, you put it in a subfolder with a date timestamp or something. So let's say they're putting in sales.xlsx, then you put it in a subfolder and you say sales underscore 2017 1127.xlsx, right? So that's one option. So solve outside of PBI, right? So yeah, I mean, essentially, let's say, and of course, at that point, the solution becomes really, really simple because you can point Power BI to a folder. So you can say new, and let's go here. And you notice here that it has kind of the regular folder option or a SharePoint folder option. Oops. So one of those would work. SharePoint folder in your case, Joe. So that is one option. Solve outside of Power BI. Within Power BI, and I'm going to space out on who solved it, but one of my students in the class, one of the bright ones, well, they're all great. They're all great. Everybody has their own journey, but they solved it using R, and I don't know R, and one of my friends says that, Avi, then you can't call yourself an analyst, but I don't know. But if you notice here that there is this button, run R script, and they were doing something within there, and I can go back and check what they were doing, which appended it. So I was frankly blown away. I mean, like, whoa, okay, that's cool. But it was a tricky solution, and it has some trade-offs as well. And the trade-off was that if you use that, and if you host the model on PowerBI.com, you cannot do an automated refresh through PowerBI.com. It's not going to work. Now, of course, there are ways around it of refreshing if you still want automatic refresh, but that was kind of a downside for that one. So I'll check with my student if I can share his solution, or have him post it on the Talk Power BI group. Otherwise, I mean, obviously this is kind of simpler. If you can solve it outside, create a folder yourself, or have them do it, have the client do it. That's an option. Let's see what else you guys are asking about. Okay, perfect. So let's do Excel Online. How about that? So we'll go here, and we'll go. So hold on, let me set it up. OneDrive. And show me files. So let's do this saved. Save as, open. How do I open it in? in Excel. There we go. Open in Excel. Whew. Oh boy. So hey, there was other stuff. I'm not sure if I get to, but there was another scenario that I wanted to cover, which was, while that other file is loading, the other scenario that I was planning to show was multiple sheets. Oops, where did that go? And if you have kind of multiple sheets of data, oh, sorry, wrong one. This one. Multiple sheets of data coming in, and somebody keeps adding new sheets to that. So we'll cover that. So let's see if we can get this guy. Copy path to clipboard. Okay, got it. So let's see if we can make this work. So of course the trick here is to remove that annoying web equals 1 at the end. And so we're going to grab that URL and we're going to go to here and let's see, oops, Excel. Let's see if we can just point to that. It's taking some time. Access denied. I would expect that it would maybe web. Let's try that. So from web. Ooh, yay. Windows organizational account. Sign in. Connect. Is it gonna work? Yay! Awesome. So yeah, try that. You just have to get the URL off the file and then authenticate using credentials. And for me, it didn't work when I said Excel file. It only worked when I said connect to web and pointed to that URL. So that was, who asked that question? That was Alejandro. So okay, good. I think we answered that. If that doesn't work, let me know. Okay, whew. 128. Okay, so we've been about 1.5 hours into it. I want to thank all of you who joined. We're not done yet. I'm just going to show you a quick other scenario, and maybe it's going to help. So again, the scenario is multiple sheets. So we have just this data in January, February, March, but then we would get somebody next month would drop in a new sheet, and then a new sheet March, April, May, June, and so forth. So that's the scenario. So let's connect to this guy. And I'll show you what happens when you go connecting to it. So if you go connect to this sheet, multiple sheets, it asks you to pick one of them. I want all of them. But you know what? We're going to humor Power BI. I'm going to start with just one of them. Doesn't matter which one. January, hit OK. And let it build my query for me. With me? All right, so now this is January 2017. But I'm just going to rename it. And one of my friend really laughs at me at the use of underscore. I can't help myself. I don't recommend it to you guys. You can use spaces for the most part everywhere. But I started off in was it Linux, Unix? One of those things. And working at Lucent. And spaces were not great over there. So I'm used to doing underscore. So we don't have full year right now. It's going, if you notice the navigation, and again, that's where the formula bar helps. You can kind of peek in. It's looking at the January 2017. But I don't want that. I want all sheets. So I'm just going to delete all these steps. I'm going to say go change tab, go promoted headers, go navigation. And now I'm back to the first step, source, and now I have all the sheets in there. I'm losing my voice. So here I'm going to only keep this data. Sometimes I keep the name of as well, but right now I'm just going to keep this one and say remove other columns. and then I'm going to expand this out. And do I need, no, I don't need that. And I get this, and now it's combining the files. So notice here is where February starts, and if I were to scroll down, there's March starts, and so forth. And of course, I can do some cleanup at this point, use first row as headers. Maybe in here, I say remove empty. Where's that? Oh, okay. So click here and say remove empty, or you can uncheck null, which is similar but not the same. Let's just remove empty, and the headers repeat again, the category, subcategory, date, sales. So I'm going to remove those as well. So I come back here and I say whenever you see a header category, remove that. So now I have a full year, January, February, March. And let's just do some quick metrics on that. Actually, let's go back. So I talked about change type. I don't like the automatic change type, and the only thing that I care about are dates and numbers. So let's fix that. So in here, I'm going to say this is a date, and this is, let's make it a fixed decimal. And now we go back. Ooh, awesome. And let's just do some, let's just do by date. Oops, what did that do? Date. There we go. And sum of sales. Is it gonna work? And I'm not creating a measure right now, but that's what I always recommend. So here we have January, February, March. Great, right? But again, the scenario was that if somebody adds a new sheet of data, it should automatically pull that in, and it's going to do that. So now if I say duplicate, so of course I'm pretending that somebody went in, okay, move or copy, and added in April. And I'm going to change that to April. Save it, and now if I go back here and I don't have to touch anything, I just hit refresh, or it's going to go through an automated refresh, and April should pop up right about now. Dang it. There we go, April. Okay, right, so you get the idea. So it doesn't matter, they can add one sheet, they can add 20 sheets, and in this one I had a month scenario, but you could have a very different scenario where sheets are being added for new countries you're expanding in, or new products you're launching, or anything, but it's going to go and kind of merge all of them together. Now, of course, there are other interesting scenarios where the data columns are not the same in all the sheets. Ooh, that's a fun one. And one of my students has asked me about that, and we explored the different scenarios. But imagine that. So right now it's an exact same structure in all these sheets. But what if it wasn't? What if it was a different structure, but we still want to combine? So there are different approaches for that. But for now, I'm gonna stop. Let's see what's going on. So yeah, if you have any more questions, let me know. But yeah, let's just do a recap of kind of where we are. So this is, oh gosh, tying myself in knots. So yeah, my friends, this is the 5-day challenge, not this one. Here we go. And the goal is to take some action, to build something. And you can learn all you want, but the real learning happens when you take action. And I'm going to be here live on YouTube for the next 5 days. And 5 days, you heard me talk about that. It's going to be something really epic. It's going to be like an all-day marathon. So that's going to be exciting. And you also have a chance to win a seat on my course. But yeah, I want to inspire you to action. I want to be your cheerleader and your coach. And I'm going to be here on YouTube. You can ask me your questions. I'm going to take some of your questions back to either my students or the Microsoft team, see if I can find some answers for you. Or if you post them in the Talk Power BI group, if I wasn't able to answer them, somebody else might have an answer quicker than me. Let's see. So we talked about sample data sets. So number one is you use your own company's data set. If you don't have that, we talked about some of the other sample data sets you can use. And yeah, so think of it as in 3 phases. And day 1, 2, and 3, I'm gonna talk about and focus on each one of these. I'm going to focus today. We talked mostly what I showed you was around the query editor. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you a little bit about relationships and DAX measures. But I'm not going to back in. I'm not teaching you to do this. There's already tons of resources on my YouTube channel and inside my course for you to get that training. But here, I just want to focus, frankly, on mindset. Sometimes that's important, that you have the kind of right approach to doing this stuff, and getting you over the roadblocks and problems. So tomorrow, the plan is to focus on models, and the day 3 we will focus on visuals. Day 4, I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'll talk about Power BI platform. Maybe we'll just have it kind of an open Q&A. And that's the plan. So hey, I'm gonna do one more shout out for kind of last questions. So last call, and I'll wait. There's a 30-second pause. So the first time I did this, I asked, does anybody have any questions? Nope. Click close. And then later I saw the chat window kept scrolling. So I'll wait a little bit. But thanks again for everybody who joined, folks. I'll be candid. I mean, initially when I started this, Talk Power BI, this thing has been an idea for a long time. And there were calls when there were 3 people and they were all very quiet and it wasn't very fun. So you're the one who makes this fun and exciting for me. And I truly appreciate all the students who are inside my Learn Power BI program. They're kind of my number 1 priority. I'll be candid about that. But right behind them, really, really close, are all of you, every follower that I have on YouTube, on my email list, on Facebook, if we hang out together. So really appreciate it. Okay, so I think we waited the prerequisite 30 seconds. I didn't see any new questions, but that's why we have the Facebook group. Hang out there, and yeah, I'll see you guys live tomorrow. All right, power on, my friends. Oh, I don't know how to shut it off. Okay, don't power on yet. Okay, it's gonna take me a few seconds to turn it off. If you have any questions, I guess that gives you another opportunity to ask it right here. I'm happy to stay on. Oh, I know. All right, friends. We'll see you tomorrow. This time for real. Signing off.